Oh, this is funny. The main baddies are called prophets.
Yeah.
They're on these little floating chairs. They just floated up into the air, and you can see them in certain shots. You can see them floating there. And obviously, Master Cheeks is just kind of fighting all the Covenant below. And everyone was like, "Well, if you just shoot in the air, you'll end the Covenant human war."
There's a rumor. Again, we'll talk about this next week. But there's a rumor flying around on there, like on Reddit about this, and it just sounded all really plausible. And you get right to the last sentence, and it literally says, "You can trust me. My dad works at Nintendo."
Oh no! Hi everyone, and welcome to Warhammer. We're your hosts, Jack
And Dan.
Today we're going to be talking about the Warhammer TV show that's coming up and what can we learn from it based off the Fallout TV show, Halo TV show, and what else?
Dune movies,
Dune movie.
So three very successful, two very successful adaptations, and one where possibly where they've got it very wrong.
Definitely.
But there's definitely lessons that can be learned there.
Yeah.
I mean, Cavill's spearheading this live action. We think it's going to be a TV show, 40K TV show. It's funded by Amazon, so I hope it's going to have a good budget. But for every successful sci-fi franchise, there's at least a few failures. So it's very important that they go the right way.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Now, as I say, when we talk about those three big ones, because I think there's some really good things to take away and maybe, I guess, a lot of things to learn for the TV show, which we'll get into later. But the first one we're going to be talking about is Fallout.
Yes.
Dan, do you want to start off on how good this show is?
Before we get right into that, if you haven't seen Dune Part 1 or 2 or Fallout or the Halo show, there will be spoilers in here, so just to warn you,
Yeah.
So getting into Fallout, I mean, my God, what a great show that was.
I loved
absolutely loved it.
I mean, how fast did you watch it?
Binged it in a week.
Yeah. It was like a few days for me. I was like, watch the first one, saw the power armor, and I was like, I'm here for that. I'm here all night.
Yeah. It was one of my pals, Foxton. If he messaged me and says you should watch this, it's worth a watch. He's like my benchmark. I'm like, right, that goes straight to the top of the list if Foxton says it's good. Because he hates everything normally.
Fair enough.
So I binged it. I mean, it's based obviously on the video games, the same name. Something that kind of passed me by was like not during my video gaming phase, but the show really does a good job of combining fast-paced action. It's got a lot of ultra-violence, a bit of dark humour, and there's a serious undertone as well. It deals with a lot of sort of social and political and ethical issues as well.
It does.
So it covers an awful lot, doesn't it?
It really does. It really does. And I think it's nice that, I think, obviously they're with Amazon, so I think they've got a lot of flexibility in the kind of the violence that they can bring to this show. So like other platforms don't allow certain things, but Amazon seems to just allow anything really. You look at like other TV shows that's out there, that's on Amazon Prime, and it's just like, it just allow anything, any sort of violence.
I think it's not a point that I actually made in the notes, but we'll come on to that when we talk about Dune. But in terms of the, it's integral to the 40K setting and integral to Fallout is you need that gore. Yeah,
you do. Yeah,
you can't do it.
Well, it's like it's grimdark, grimdark aspect. You do need that element of just sheer violence, sheer gore, and I'm looking forward to it. But so maybe we should talk about a few things that Fallout got right.
Yes, and I think one of the ones that I did appreciate was, I said, even though I haven't played the video games, obviously I'm aware of them and I have, I know I have played some of them, just haven't got massively into them.
I've played most of them.
Yeah, and I think one of the first things I noticed was little touches to the hardcore fans, which I really like. Yeah. So these are things that a casual viewer like my kids have never played the games could watch the TV show and not know that they were in the game. But for those of us that know, it's like a little wink to you, like I'll put this in there just
exactly right.
I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we're nerds at the end of the day. We love little
It's
Easter
like
eggs.
when you spot it, you're just like, tap, you're like, they did it. Yeah, absolutely.
So the couple on this one, the obvious ones, like the stim packs for healing and Radaway, obviously, for curing radiation poisoning. Yeah. And now immediately you're just like,
as soon as you saw that iconic stim pack, it's like, because like some people would look at it and be like, how does that heal you? Kind of thing. But we're just like, it's a game thing.
Yeah.
And then
I love the fact
it fixes you up. Yeah.
And you noticed another one as well from the very beginning, which I didn't pick up on.
It was two really good things. So when every Fallout game, whenever you first play the game, you have to basically pick your stats. So you pick obviously all the different like luck traits and such. Yeah. So at the start of the TV show, the main character is going through what she can do and what she's good at and what she's bad at. And it's like, it's such a good thing that they've added on because it's so simple to do and it adds to the story. Well, it flows naturally with the story because it's like, we're getting to learn this character because we've never seen this character before, but it also pays homage to the main TV, well, the main fans that's out there.
It's a wonderful nod to the video game fans, and it's clever writing, isn't it? It's good,
exactly.
Good writing.
The other thing I noticed as well was obviously the slow-mo action shots that they've got. I think they nailed it. So you might just think, generic slow-mo inside of films. They're only doing it to, I don't know, emphasize certain things. But the slow-mo shots in the Fallout TV series was purely based off the VATS system, which is the Vault-Tec assisted targeting system.
Yes.
And it's basically that's in game. So you use VATS to basically pick which parts of the body you want to shoot at.
Yeah.
And they've done that really well in this, where all the slow motion shots were targeting certain areas. So
that's a really, really good point, actually. Yes.
It's something that, again, hardcore fans would notice, but the general, the casual audience wouldn't notice it, but it wouldn't take them out of the game to be like, oh, well, I'm isolated now because, like, I don't know what's going on. It doesn't do that. It adds to it. So
yes,
it's very good how they've done it.
So take note, Cavill. Put something in there for the nerds like that.
Because Henry's watching. Hi, Henry. Yeah. He watches all Warhammer content out there.
He's got many long hours in that trailer when he's filming.
That's true. That's true.
He's got to watch something while he's painting those little golden boys or girls.
I like it.
So another point is I picked up on was which I really liked from this show was moral ambiguity. Which I don't want to get start sounding too pseudo analytical, but this is important, and it's very, very important to 40K. Is that if 40K does not operate on good and evil,
yes,
those are the ends of the spectrum, and 40K operates in between in the grey areas.
Yeah.
Everybody, some factions can do things that are incredibly good, but also commit war crimes. And I think Fallout also did that really, really well. Like none of the characters in it are actually good or evil.
Now you had a very good little example on here, don't you, about what the lady does?
So Lucy. I mean, she actually threw at one point. She thinks that the scientists are conducting experiments on these captives, and she throws acid in the scientist's face. And it turns out that he's actually looking after them and trying
to help them. And it's just like this is that element of, oh well, look, she's this lovely character who wouldn't do anything horrible.
Yes.
But she turns out doing something horrible to a very nice person, and it's like, oh, this sort of stuff can happen, and this sort of stuff will happen in 40K. So it'd be, again, they need that platform to be able to do this sort of stuff.
Yes. And they also did it quite well with the Brotherhood as well. The guy in the power armor Maximus, like in leading on from that, they kind of then take it to the comic extreme where he thinks he's coming to rescue Lucy when they've already said she can go, and he just starts hoying people across the room into the walls and that, like trashing everything. It's good. Yeah, it was very good.
It's good. So but also I think when you mentioned Maximus there, part where again, spoilers incoming, but when the part where he's the squire to the other one, the other power armor guy, and he goes in the cave and he starts running out. He starts like saying like, starts running away. But then as he gets he's practically on the way out. Don't want to say the word in case YouTube hurts but he's on the way out. His expiration date is expiring, should we say?
Yes.
He just watches him and he's like, he's like, this is going to happen.
He's like, he's been. I mean, the way they subverted that was so quickly was really clever with the Knights because like these guys are like these trainees, they're aspiring to become squires to these knights, and then the way it's fed to them is the squires, like you learn the trade from the knight and then you become a knight.
Like
when he gets out into the real world, he realizes the squires are just cannon fodder. They're completely viewed as disposable.
And the knights just don't even care.
Yeah, the knights don't care about it. It was really well done.
Yeah, it was really well done because they had this like menacing pose on them during the first opening couple of episodes where it's like they're standing over them, they're just silent but deadly kind of thing. And I think, we'll get into it later, but Halo needed that aspect. Halo needed the aspect of this silent but deadly killer, but they just wafted straight away, and we can talk about later why. But another very good point.
For the Halo section because it's going to be
it's just me complaining.
But I mean that kind of leads that talk point about the Knights kind of leads on to the next point about satire because the show is Fallout is quite deeply satirical. Yeah, and as much as people argue about this, there is still satiric. I think there's a lot of satirical elements in 40K. Yeah, the Imperium is essentially sort of.
It's a radical group.
Yeah, I mean it's decaying really. It's fragmented. It's crumbling. It's full of it's held together by extremism. There's an awful lot of tensions and satire within that. Yeah, and that's just one element of it. Yeah. So there's definitely. I think that's something that needs to be taken from the lore of 40K and imported into the show, and I think Fallout did a great job of that.
Yes, they brought the aspects of the lore which was good about the lore and brought it into the show, and they've kept it. Again, we'll talk about it later, but they've kept it in the same universe as well, as Todd Howard said. It like, because during the TV show, they obviously the Sandy, Sandy Shores?
Yeah.
Sandy Shores, I think is what it's called. I could be wrong on that
something
one.
Something like that. Sandy something, yeah.
Sandy something. But yeah, basically like that gets destroyed, and everyone's like kicking off, like being like, oh, hold on, that law is different because that's there during like New Vegas, and Todd's like, no, it's there for sure, but this happens after New Vegas. And there's a very tight.
He worked out there's like a really narrow window of when they could have blown it up, and still make it so it fits with the existing law.
Exactly,
and that's good. But I think, I mean, we'll talk about this maybe as a bit when we get into the wider discussion. But there's things like this. Like, while I don't like massive retcons, a show that exists within the universe of Fallout that is, by and large, takes its main themes or whatever. Yeah, I'm not too bothered.
No,
if they change little things.
It's an adaptation at the end of the day, isn't it? You know what I mean? So they have to adapt it to TV, and certain things do need to change, which makes sense.
Yeah,
I like it.
One thing that I think that definitely didn't need to change between the game and the TV show was dark humor, and I think they've done that really well in the TV show as well, haven't they? Yeah, because the game has got a real. Just real vibe,
nastiness to it. Basically, it's this wasteland which is full of just everything that can kill you. Yes. Basically, it wants to take you out. It wants to do it. And I think you look at, I mean, the part where the water itself is radioactive, and the main character's like, oh well, I don't want to drink it because it's radioactive, but I have to drink it. So I'm not going to survive if I don't do it. And then they start and she drinks it, and then it's like, oh, I'm not feeling great. So literally everything in the wasteland's trying to get you. So I think it's good that, again, the platform Amazon, I'm shouting out Amazon's I can't say the word. They're tooting Amazon up there, but it's just like it's good that it's on a platform that allows a sort of humor.
You need that, and also a show, and particularly I mean, Fallout, it kind of, like I said, it's that rich humor, the dark humor is there in in some of the NPCs that you meet and the things that you can do yourself, you know, some of the storyline, etc. So it was good that they ported that vibe across. Yeah. But I think what it also did for that show was avoided it being too preachy. So it kind of because it's dealing with some big themes about capitalism and the destruction of humanity, basically. There's some quite dark stuff. There is. So you need that humor just to avoid it being too po-faced. Yeah. And 40K can go one of either way. So some of the heresy books in particular are deadly serious. Like, you will not get a lot of comic relief in there. Nah. And that works sometimes. But I think for a TV show, you're going to need something like that. The balance,
because again, like, those hardcore fans would possibly love those type of TV shows where it's like all serious, it's true to the books, but a TV adaptation where you're getting a lot of a new audience in there that has none of that comedy. It's like, well, they're going to be put off by it, so they do need to find that right balance.
And I think, that is a brilliant point, because we need to be aware of this, is that as much as we love 40K and we want this show to be for us, it needs to be for more than us, otherwise it won't be a success.
Well, that's it, exactly. I mean, there is a lot of fans out there. Maybe we could proc up the numbers if there is enough of them, but at the same time, we don't just want that, because we want new people in the hobby. And the TV show is just another avenue of getting new people into the hobby.
It's the only way I'm going to win more games, if I can bring more noobs in and boost my win rate.
That's what we need,
Load of kids come into the hobby and I can smash them all over the place.
Get there and be like, oh, look at this easy. Space Marines, standard. I like it. But this last point.
Yeah, you picked this up. You picked up a good point about this. I mean, it's got an absolute banging soundtrack.
Goodness. So good.
The use of music in this show is phenomenal. They've picked
not even the show, like even all of the games and such. Yes. Every single game they've done, they've just got absolutely amazing soundtracks across the board. This has been something that I've been listening to over the last few weeks. Yeah, it's so much easier. I've been doing it in my kitchen, and it's just hit just the Fallout 76, Fallout 3, New Vegas, all of the soundtracks on. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, and I think. Obviously, you can't take music from the 20th century and whack it into 40K. It would be really jarring.
Exactly.
But I think this, and also we'll come on to it, but Dune as well. Like, the use of music can really elevate a show. So
definitely.
What they do with 40K will be interesting in terms of the soundtrack, but it needs to be on point.
Absolutely. I think a couple of things to mention as well. I really want to mention it is that there was a part in the TV show where they hold up the NCR flag. Yes. And I got goosebumps when the main theme started kicking in. I was like, like, oh, I was like grabbing Hannah. I was like, oh, look at it. I was like, they're doing it. It's great. So that was an unreal bit.
And that was another one of those nods to the hardcore, wasn't it? Like, you know, there's so many gifts to the OG fans in that show.
Another thing where the music was playing out. So at the end of the TV show, at the end of each episode, they've done a really good thing, which is again another nod to the hardcore fans, where the credits would roll, but it would zoom out throughout the wasteland.
Yes.
Music was playing, which again was absolute banger, but that was also resembled the loading screens in the games, because the loading screens zoomed out and such, and that was again a very good nod with a banging soundtrack on the back of it.
Yeah, it was a lovely touch.
It was really good. And we do want to talk about some of the things that maybe got wrong, but this list is nothing in comparison to Halo later on. So
yeah, and I mean, to a certain degree, from my perspective anyway, it's possibly nitpicking. But you know, I mean, it was a great show, but it wasn't a perfect show. So what were the things that didn't get right, which I wouldn't want to see in a 40K show?
Yeah,
the first one was I felt sometimes it was too episodic.
Okay, right.
I mean, this is kind of in keeping with the video game vibe, because you know you kind of go to an area and you do a quest or whatever, and then you move on. But sometimes it felt a bit too much like each episode was a level of a game, and for Fallout, you can kind of get away with it.
Yeah,
but you can't. You know, it would need to be a smoother story arc for 40K, I think.
You see, I actually didn't notice that until you've mentioned it, because I guess I'm so used to the games, maybe that just felt natural to me, so that I didn't even pick up on the aspect of, oh, they're in one area, right, they're doing this one thing, right, next episode, they're now here, they're doing this one thing. So I didn't notice it, but now that you mention it, I am seeing the cuts between each episode where it's like, oh, they've now finished this section, next episode, oh, they're now here. It's like, oh, okay, that's strange.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good. That's a good pickup. I think Warhammer, that would be, let's hope they definitely don't do that Warhammer, because the scene and depending on what storyline they pick, it's such a massive world that that hop that they might do would be quite jarring.
It would be
to an audience.
And I think this one is a bugbear. It's just a personal bugbear of mine, but flashback is not my favourite way of
storytelling.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
I think it was very important to Fallout, because it's absolutely vital to what we talked about before, like making the ghoul in particular not be a two-dimensional villain.
Yeah.
You know, the flashback sets gives you his motives and all of that kind of stuff.
Where he came from and
explain,
such.
You know,
that makes sense.
And it actually, you know, it gives him a really interesting character arc, because he starts off as obviously just a really nice guy, who loves his country and that, and then it slowly peels back all these layers and shows him what's really going on. But I mean, the guy that plays him, Walton Goggins, is one of my favourite actors. He's in a brilliant show called Justified, which is on Disney Plus, I think. Which, if you haven't seen that, is worth watching. That he plays one of the main protagonists in that, and he's great.
No, I think it's a good shout. To be fair, like I said, there is quite a few flashbacks in there.
Yeah,
I personally think they've done it pretty nice. There was definitely some scenes that probably didn't need to be there, but I guess I also very much like the I think it's like the lore finding kind of thing, where I was looking at these flashbacks, and I was like, oh, that's that little thing. Like, there was that one part during the flashback where he's getting the photos when he's in the full suit, and he's like, oh, should I do a little thumbs up? And then I was like, oh, yes. I was like, that's the thing. And then they were like, yeah, go ahead. And that like, to maybe an audience who hasn't played the game, they'll probably be like, all right, cool, like side of things. But it's like, since I know about it, I was like, oh, this is amazing kind of thing. But
yeah, they did it in a good way. It's just a personal. I'm not a massive fan of it, and we'll talk about this again a bit later on, but show don't tell, really, and sometimes flashback feels a bit like a clunky way of doing the exposition, but it had to be done in this, and it didn't do a terrible job of it. It's just not my favourite way of doing it.
Do you reckon they'll be bad in Fallout then? Not Fallout, sorry. Do you reckon they'll be bad in the Warhammer TV show?
I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? We'll come on to this when we talk about Dune in the end, but Dune is a really good example of this, where the book is massive, is dense and rich with lore. Like,
16 hours on Audible.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry, 21 hours.
21 hours, yeah. And the amount of lore that he packs into those pages is huge.
Yeah.
And the movie that they made in the 80s, the David Lynch version, which interestingly has got Cavill McLachlan in it, who is also in Fallout.
Oh.
He plays Paul Atreides in the 80s Dune movie. Yeah.
Did he? Oh, that's great.
It's in the 80s Dune movie, there is a lot of like this, like the character be like, would there just be dialogue between two characters, and it's just clunky exposition to try and explain, and you just like, whereas if you can avoid that, find clever. There's lots of examples in Fallout where they find. Look, we just talked about a couple where they find clever ways of tying together the nerd lore, the video game lore, and an exposition for new audience.
Yeah,
and that's what I'd like to see more.
Good.
Of.
I like it. A couple of things for me.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not, again, these aren't really like big things for me. This is something that I've seen the ruckuses online, but
I think that's it. It is a thing, and it's worth commenting on, isn't it?
It's just because this is what I don't want to see, basically. But well, I guess again, it's an adaptation in the Warhammer TV show, so it's obviously going to happen. But some of the things that I've seen, again, didn't really personally impact me, but people just dislike the lore being changed. In the Fallout TV show, there was a part where they ever so slightly changed, like the ending scene where basically the corporations are all talking about who's the bombs being dropped, who's who can make the best vault kind of thing. And I'll not touch more into it. Whoever knows Fallout using will look into it a bit more. But there's corporations who are picking what society will be, I guess, best made from depending on what vault they're in. So each corporation buys so many vaults to then run their own experiments in order to make their own the better society kind of thing, and it's like a bet kind of thing. But like apart from that, there's like other little below bits of things that were changed, which I think a few people in the fan base really disliked.
Shady Sands, is that what it's called? Not Sands.
Shady Sands. Did we write it down? Yes, I think it is. We'll go with it. Let's say yes.
Let's go yes.
Yeah, everyone else is wrong in the comments.
We're gonna get absolutely creamed in the comments.
Let them come.
Bring it on. Yeah. You're right though. Yeah, it's. I mean, there's certain elements of lore that you need to be sacrosanct. Like Space Marines have power armor and. The Emperor is dying on the Golden Throne, so to speak. Those but if there are other slight tweaks in a TV show, it just depends on where you sit on that divide, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, exactly.
Some people it irks more than others.
Exactly, and then you'll see why it irks me in Halo. But yeah, like I say, like don't change too much the law is what I would say on the back of that one.
So that leads us very nicely into the biggest rant that we've ever had on this.
I can only apologise for my viewers and listeners at home for what I'm about to talk about. But Halo, so the Halo TV show. I'm sure majority of people who's watching or listening to this probably know about the Halo TV show. And basically, Halo TV, it was produced by Paramount Plus. It was created by Stephen Kane and Kyle Killen, yeah. Kyle Kitten. Kyle Kitten.
That'll do.
We'll go with it. Kyle Kitten.
Maybe he's a furry. Who knows?
But yes, so basically, the Halo is a beloved game. It's one of my childhood games, basically. My favorite.
It's huge, and hugely popular.
Hugely popular. But yeah, it's a beloved game by all. The book series is fantastic. It basically sustained the Microsoft and the Xbox releases year on year. Halo is 100% my favorite game. Growing up, I've had countless hours playing it. I've completed every single Halo, every single one of the main Halo games on Legendary. Some of them with skulls on. Even Spawn Assault, I've done that. It's a little spin-off game. Halo Wars 2. Loved all those games. I've played them very much. So when I heard the TV show was being made, I was like, because this was like 5-6 years ago now. This was a long time ago. It was in production for, and it was like, this is great. Oh my God, there's like going to be so much things they can do, because there's also comics that's out there that are really successful. Books that are again really successful. The books came first, then the games came out, then the TV show came out. So the TV show had all this lore, all this good stuff to build on. And I was really looking forward to it.
Talking about a lot of, like years and years of content, aren't we? Like there's a lot of lore out there.
Exactly.
In a similar position to 40K.
Exactly right. The 40K has the lore just like what Halo does. So it's like, you should think that with the foundations already built, you can build upon it to make it fantastic.
Yes.
But did
they do that? No.
I'm so mad right now. No, they did not. But let's talk about some couple of good things, because
let's start with the positives.
They did start with a couple of good things. Master Chief in his armor looked great.
Yes.
With the helmet on. The helmet on, he looked fantastic. There was some scenes, granted, that a little bit, the armor clearly was swapped out for a more practical one to move around in.
Right.
Look, it's a TV show.
Yeah.
Allow some things to go wrong. And some of the CGI, I thought some of the CGI was fantastic. Other people said it was bad. And I was like, well, look, it's a TV show. Give it some credit. It's the first time doing it. I'm happy to see some Jackals looking a bit weird. That's fine. Just crack on. Let's get it done. So there was that. He looked absolutely incredible. Some of the shots that they've done as well, Dan, unreal. So basically, Spartans. Do you know much about Halo?
You know enough, a little bit. Yes,
good. Because I'm about to load them on you. So the Spartans themselves, there's loads of different. There's like a few different types of Spartans, but the Master Chief is Spartan. It's Spartan 3, and he's one of the strongest out there basically. And there's like Spartan 4s and Spartan 5s that come in the later games, but in this TV show, there's only the Spartan 3s that's there. Sergeant Johnson's also there, but they made no nod towards him being a Spartan 1.
Right. Which
we'll not get into. Again, I'm low dumping him, so sorry, audience. Sorry, Dan.
It's all right, go for it.
But basically, Spartan 3s are like just the best of the best, the peak of the peak, and you can clearly see in some of these action shots that they stand above everybody else.
Right.
They literally, there's a scene where all the Marines are running towards a ship, and you just see this Spartan just, honestly, it looked like they were just gliding along the ground as they were running, and they were going like, I think they can reach speeds of like 60 miles an hour, and they just outran everybody else, and there was no comparison. It's like, gives you a little goosebumps because you're like, good, this is what we want to see.
Yes.
They are incredible feats of what humans can do, and it was lovely to see.
And that obviously has a very clear parallel in the 40k universe, doesn't it?
Exactly, because again, you got the Guardsmen alongside the Space Marines, and you expect to look at the Space Marines and be like, oh my goodness, they're great.
Yes.
And actually, that's a really good comparison. We'll get onto that in the negatives that I want to highlight. But another good thing is that the Halsey, who made Cortana, basically met 3 Spartans and was like, hey, Master Chief's in danger, go help him no matter what. And they took that, be like, cool, if it comes to it, we'll take care of anyone who gets in the way, allied or not.
Right.
And it was like, this is good. This is what Halsey made the Spartans for. Halsey made them to be her personal army, and not an army for the humans. The only reason why the just kind of switched sides on that aspect was because the Covenant invaded.
Yes.
So she didn't realize that aliens existed at that point.
Yeah.
So when that happened, she was like, right, well, the Spartans have to kind of help Thingy, and Mahan's kind of forced to make these Spartans help out. So at that point in time, we didn't know the aliens really existed.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, well, sorry, they did, but they didn't at the very start, but they did during the show, and it was just good to be like, right, you're still mine, so make sure Chief is my pride and glory. Make sure he's safe. And that was a really nice nod, because the very tense scenes came after that.
It comes back to that kind of that moral ambiguity that we're talking about before again, like that Halsey isn't evil necessarily.
Exactly.
And you know, that circumstances can force you into choices that you wouldn't necessarily.
That was probably the only point in the show where that kind of happened. And I'm primarily focused on season 1 of this slides, because the amount of negatives that I've got for this, just season 1 alone, I couldn't fit season 2 inside here. I could barely fit season 1, basically. But
so let's go on the big list then. Things it got wrong.
Oh, Dad, where do I start? There's just so many things that I just don't want them to do in the Warhammer TV show that they're done in Halo. I mean, a couple of the first things, which they're already doing right in my books. So the creators, so again, Stephen Kane and Kyle Krillin, basically they didn't read any of the books. They didn't play any of the games, and they said this in an interview. They made it a goal to not talk about it at all, to not talk about any Halo game or any book, or any comic, nothing. And it's like, hold on. Why? Just answer the why. You have the foundations. Why are you trying to build something new for? That doesn't make sense. There's such a disconnect between the writers and the actual core audience.
It does not make any sense whatsoever, because you're just going to alienate the original fan base, and then but also that then makes it harder to attract newer people in to watch it anyway. And the only time I've ever seen that work and be a success was Verhoeven when he made Starship Troopers, the movie adaptation of that in the 90s,
right?
Because he basically chucked out a lot of. I mean, the world building is similar, but he chucked out a lot of the key themes of that in the book, because he wanted to make a really obvious satire on authoritarianism.
Right.
But that,
okay.
He had
that worked for different reasons.
Exactly. But this is not what they're trying to do. They weren't saying like we should the key themes of this law are wrong, and therefore we need to take a different approach. They just ignored it.
It's just flat out ignored it, and it's like, and then because they came out and said that in an interview, and then I don't understand why they came out and said it, because I just don't understand what the grab for was, because everyone who was watching these interviews were Halo fans.
Yeah.
They were big fanboys. So why say this in an interview? That again is like, you've already set yourself up for failure, because you're like, oh, I'm here to do a press tour to basically build up the hype for it. Guess what? Tell you what, me and Dan actually don't even like Warhammer.
Yeah.
This is why we do the podcast. We don't like it. We already did. See, that doesn't make sense.
No.
Immediate, you'd have a big disconnect
Yes.
of why you'd be watching the show.
Yeah.
So that,
and these,
honestly,
one of the things that Halo and 40K share is that they have a big impact on young people during the formative years of their experiences of gaming, if you like. So Halo has been massive for I don't know, maybe nearly 20 years.
If not more.
So you imagine the tens of millions of people who've had that's positively impacted. Yeah. And some of them just play the game, but some of them will then get deeper into it.
Yeah.
And, read the books and
that's it.
Get into the lore, etc.
Yeah.
So to disregard all of that is really, really foolish, in my opinion.
Exactly, because again, you got the books, you got the games, and now the TV show. Well, look, there might be someone out there who doesn't like the gaming, who doesn't like reading the books, but loves TV.
Yeah,
it's another way of getting new audiences and new Halo fans into the fandom. And again, it's the same for people who love games might not like the books or the TV show. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's another way, another avenue of getting people.
Fallout is a good example of that. They reckoned. I read an article the other day, and they reckoned that it brought back in an extra 5 million new players to the Fallout games.
It has, yeah. Halo 80s, 76 that came
Fallout
out.
76, yeah.
Who I'm not beyond. We can all agree it came out in an absolutely awful state. Yeah. Everyone was just dumbing on it. But that's seen a massive popularity increase because of a successful TV show. And I'm sad to say it, but I'm almost glad. Oh, I'm not glad that's happened, but I'm glad that it's been possible to do, just to show Halo. Hey, look, it's possible. It's possible to bring back. Because basically Halo, I don't know if everyone knows out there, Halo Infinite is going through a very low peak numbers season at the minute. Not very many people are playing it, but at its core, it is a good game. It's just that they started off really bad. Yeah. So having a successful TV show is almost like an investment. You're bringing people back into it. And Bethesda is going to make a lot of money back off it.
I saw a great tweet yesterday of somebody was saying that they were really pleased that those new fans coming in were getting the full Bethesda experience because the game was full of bugs and wasn't working properly.
Yes.
I was like, good old Bethesda. Yeah.
Oh, never change, please, never change. But that was one of the first things. These are just more bugbears for me, right? The next one is the way Master Chief talks to everybody else.
The way they've and it's not the actor's fault, but the way they've depicted that character is completely different, isn't it?
It's night and day, basically. So like again, a good example of this is a Fallout TV show. So the Brotherhood of Steel, the way that they're just imposing, like the shot where they all land on the runway, and there's like 4 of them walking towards you, and it's like the slow motion action shot, and it's like, hey, these are great. They get there, they don't talk to anyone. No. But everyone's inspired by them. Yeah. They have this menacing pose where it's like, oh, I'm terrified of you. I'm so glad you're on my side. Yes. And it's that feel of like, yes, they're here, we're saved kind of thing. And that's how the games felt, and that's how the books felt as well. You being the Master Chief, you'd walk into a room, the Covenant are everywhere, and the Marines look at you and they're like, Master Chief's here, we're all saved. And then they start obviously they don't, but it looks like they start performing better, they start shooting more, and it's like there's just aroma of just
he's got that status and charisma and character that lifts people.
Exactly. And again, you refer this back to the Warhammer 2, the Space Marine 2 trailer that's coming out, when the guardsmen are falling back from the Tyranids, and you see the dropship come over and the Space Marines drop down, and they walk past, and one of the guardsmen looks up and he's like, oh, his angels. It's like that inspiration that gets driven into it. Halo needed that, and they didn't do it. Oh. There was the opposite. The Chief, the way he talked to even his own Spartans, it was just disrespectful. He was just shooting them down. He was just telling them off. Oh. Even the Marines themselves, like some of them were dying. He was like, I don't care. And he was just like, some of them were like, I think one of them said something, I want to go do something. And then Chief was like, well, why'd you do that for? That's stupid. Stay here. And it's like, stop speaking like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, again, even because Master Chief was like this silent menace who was there, but instead he's then just like this talkative arsehole.
Yeah, and I know. I mean, it's difficult to do a TV show. You would, in theory, let's say we're having this conversation 5 years ago. If you said to me, right, I've got this idea for a TV show, but the main character doesn't take his helmet off and is a man of few words, everyone would say that's really hard to do. It's just been done by the Mandalorian.
Mandalorian done it incredibly. Exactly.
It can be done.
It certainly can be done.
And there's precedent. I mean, Mandalorian actually draws on the spaghetti western kind of tradition. So as Clint Eastwood kind of near silent. They said more with their silence than they did with their words sometimes.
100%.
There are ways to do this with writing without just throwing all the old lore out.
Yep. And again, the Brotherhood of Steel, they didn't take their helmet. Again, I'll mention it. They didn't take their helmet off in the first episode. They were this menace. They were around. You didn't know. And then again, it was like, I think it was like the third or fourth episode in was when we kind of really saw the reflection of what was inside.
Yes.
But again, that was done in incredibly. Whereas a stark difference from Halo is you can just see it was a bad writing overall.
Yeah. It doesn't. The way they've drawn that character is completely different, and it doesn't necessarily work in show either, does it? No. It's just bad writing.
It's just very bad writing.
But
Shame on you, Stephen.
In terms of those like relationships, there's some other issues that we need to pick up on here. Isn't
God, right. So from this point on, I'll refer to him as Master Cheeks going forward from here. So Master Cheeks had a relationship as well with a POW, so a prisoner of war, of a human Covenant radical, basically. So this human that was somehow on the Covenant side and was somehow influenced and could speak perfect English and perfect Covenant. Don't think about it too hard. Just go with me here. But anyways, she gets captured, and Master Cheeks then basically just gets naked and somehow falls in love. And again, this is a massive dump on the law. Spartans can't reproduce. And it's like, well, stop dumping on us just to have a random sex scene in this TV show that made. It's actually funny that they were mentioning it. Master Chief, and I'll happily be corrected, but no, I'm not. I don't care about anyone. Basically, Master Cheeks, he didn't play any part in the main story of the TV show.
Right.
He was just a side character of our Spartans doing the work, and it's like, come on, you're just getting in the way. Get out. Let the other ones get the other ones in. Writing. But yeah, basically that happened. Master Cheeks, and in the first episode, there's another little rant that I've got. In the first episode, he took off his helmet. I briefly mentioned it before, but the thing is, right? I get because in a TV show, I don't know why people don't know. In order for the actor to get credit or to get awards, they have to show their face during a thing. So I get at one point the mask, a helmet was gonna have to come off. I could accept it. Maybe this dramatic thing at the end, end of Halo 1, he gets in the you think he's the final lone survivor, he takes off his helmet, the camera pans up so you don't see it, but something like that, where the camera stays just enough to see him, I can get away with. Of course I can. End of Halo 5, the Legendary Edition, if you complete on Legendary, the mask gets taken off and you see his eyes. Great, perfect. Look, a little bit of teaser, not too much, but just enough to be like, oh, that's what. So what he looks like. That's really cool. In this one, he's trying to get this radical. I can't say the word. The radical person who's trying to get them. Trying to get her on his side. And he does it in such a way where he's like, oh, you can trust me. And she's like, oh, how can I trust you? And he takes off his helmet. I'm like, come on. Like, why? You don't even know this person. She was called Quan, and everyone hates Quan. Because she has a very, very bad storyline. But it takes off his helmet, and it's like, why are you doing this? That adds no info to the story. You've ruined such a thing that could have been built up to be this really cool thing. And you're doing it to one of the... Sorry, Quan, but she's the worst character in the show. So you're doing it to the worst character, and it makes no sense. No logical sense. And... Halo lore facts coming out. Even if she pulled the pistol, Chief has very good reactions, and he can actually dodge. Not bullets, can't dodge bullets, but her reactions to where he's aiming, he can kind of get around that and like shield himself. So it also didn't make much sense in the lore aspect of it as well. So they're my biggest rants that I want to talk about. I did write maybe a bunch more that I'll spitfire real fast.
We'll run through them, but they are worth covering.
They are very brief overviews, basically. So a couple of spitfire personal rants about the show that I absolutely do not want to see or hate about the show. Season 1 just mentioning about what the Halo is. So although it's called Halo, the audience doesn't know.
Yeah.
No characters act like they are in the game counterparts.
Yeah.
Master Cheeks and Cortana's relationship is just not a relationship. That's silly. Master Cheeks taking off his helmet. Yep, mentioned that one already. The TV show went through so many different hands. So before it ended up with those people, again, I mentioned briefly, it was in production for 5 years.
Yeah.
It went through so many people because they just couldn't adapt it because they must be just bad writers. And I will say that. I'm sorry. Paramount Plus shouldn't be doing this. It should be Amazon because again, we need that.
Needs to be a little bit
darker.
Yeah.
That element of it. The lore is so rich, they should be using it.
Yes.
Season 1 final fight. The main baddies. Oh, this is funny. The main baddies are called prophets.
Yeah.
They're on these little floating chairs. They just floated up into the air, and you can see them in certain shots. You can see them floating there. And obviously, Master Cheeks is just kind of fighting all the Covenant below. And everyone was like, "Well, if you just shoot in the air, you'll end the Covenant human war." So that was silly. Yeah. Don't do that. Oni making Office of Naval Intelligence, no one knows what that is, making dumb mistakes, shutting down projects when they're about to all die to aliens. Don't do that. Quan still not siding with the government. Should denied aliens existing. It should denied there being these spawns that were designed to basically go after humans, which she was partly right on that, but the aliens invaded our hometown, killed our parents. The Spartans saved her, and all of our town still hated them. And they were like, "Hey, we're not here," because basically they landed, and they were like, "Oh, the Spartans are here. They're gonna come get her. Oh no!" And then the aliens landed, and they were like, "Oh my god, what are those?" And then Spartans saved them, and then they left. Didn't take them down, didn't arrest them, didn't do all this sort of stuff. They just left, and then Quan came with them, and then they were like, she was like, "I still don't trust you. I still don't like you. Like, you're gonna kill me." And it's like, everyone's just died to all these aliens. It doesn't make sense.
No, it's bad. It's just bad writing.
Very bad writing. And I've got loads more, but I'll not rant about Halo anymore because I know I'm going quite over on time.
Yeah, I mean, and we could have looked at Rings of Power as the other example of that. You know that, and these things. I don't want to get too far into this, but there's a lot of what is just bad writing is then it becomes weaponized and people use it in culture wars to say, this show has failed because it's got they gender swap this character or it's too woke. But it's a lot of these issues can just be attributed to disregarding, like you said, disregarding the law. And then if you replace it with is bad writing, then you want to hide it to nothing.
You've just
Witcher is another one.
Yes.
Witcher season 2 is really.
You can see the difference, can't you? From season 1.
When they decide they just want to skip off and deviate from the law and like, hang on a minute, this is not.
There was a good story of that one where he's literally walking around with the book. And he's quoting. He's like, "No, this person should say this because it's in the book," and then the writers are like, "Can you not?" And Henry's like, "We need this." So I think you've absolutely nailed it. It's down to bad writing, first of all, and not adapting the law correctly.
Yes.
Which I do think are part and part, but enough about Halo because I can rant and I'm...
One that we agree on where it is great writing and has adapted the law really well is Dune.
Very good show.
So this is director Denis Villeneuve is no stranger to sci-fi, made Arrival as well, which is a great movie. But this is his 2-part treatment of one of sci-fi's classic novels. And the movies have been a critical and a commercial success. Like everyone loves it. And Dune was a huge influence on all sci-fi, but Star Wars in particular.
Yeah.
But it was also massively influential on a young man called Rick Priestley, who those of you who love the history of GW know was the author of Rogue Trader, which is the first installment of 40K, the first rule book. So this Dune is the fact that it's come out now is just before the TV show is really interesting for me because it was so influential to the developers of 40K when they created that. Will it also impact the TV show?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of things it got right. An obvious one is budget. They invested the money. There's no skimping in these movies, and I think that helps to make it a really immersive experience. So the sets are right, the costumes, the special effects, they're all spot on.
Costumes are amazing in it. Yeah. Like the still suits that they've got that they wear throughout.
Yeah.
They look amazing. They look really good. Even because again, there's so much lore to the Dune kind of franchise when they're jumping from world to world to see the difference. I mean, Dune 2 especially. Are we focusing mainly on Dune 1 or Dune 2 as well?
I think it's important to talk about both. Yeah,
the color difference as well when they went black and white into
the Harkonnen homeworld. Yes,
and it was like this is class, and then that's why when you see them outside of the black and white, all they're wearing is black.
Yes,
and it's like, oh, okay, this makes sense because there's no color back on their homeworld. It's like like
they've got like a black sun.
So it all makes sense. But Dune adapted it incredibly well.
And I think to follow on from that is a sense of scale. Like sci-fi should feel big, and this felt like a big, like the scale of some of the visiting, the way they visited some of those worlds, the now enormous like Guild Highliner spaceships, even the worms, like you get a real sense of scale of the worms.
Yeah, I think the position again that comes down to maybe very good writing, but cinematography.
Cinematography definitely
is just highlights the worms being like from the perspective of on the floor to then this worm coming up. It's like, oh, they're big. They're quite the big.
And the scene, it's something that you get that when when Paul and Jessica are running away across the trigger, like they come run across this drum stand, which makes a big booming noise and triggers a worm to chase them.
Yeah,
and it kind of rises right up. They make it to the rocks and it rises right up in the first one. You see, you get this huge image of it. And then in 2, they did really well was part of Paul's like becoming a Fremen. He has to ride, become a sand rider, has to ride on a worm. And they didn't try and initially just show you like him jumping on the. They did it from like. Quite close in, so you get a real feeling of like how difficult this is. Like he's got these wind blasting, sand blasting and all sorts. He's trying to grab onto this worm, like sliding down the side of it. It was really well done.
Yeah.
We've already touched on this before, but show don't tell. There's very, very little clunky exposition in either of the Dune movies. So where possible, the director shows us what's happening rather than has the characters, talking about things that are happening off screen. And that was done. That's going to be massively important in 40K because Dune has been considered for. I mean, it came out in 1965. It's nearly 60 years old, the book, and it's been considered for years to be an unfilmable novel. So Jodorowsky tried to do one in the 70s. The 80s movie David Lynch did, which was a commercial and critical flop. And then this one, but Denis Villeneuve has nailed it. It's partly because of modern cinema techniques, like getting special effects right and stuff, but also that filmmakers have got better at being able to take a lot of information from a book, a lot of rich lore, and transfer it onto a screen. So
I think the better tools are available to help do this. You know? I mean, I think overall just better writers have naturally got better.
A lot, that's very true, and I think that's massively important for 40K because the lore is so dense in that as well. Like if you imagine, if like somebody sat down. That like you're at a works function or something, like, oh, what do you like doing in your spare time? Like, oh, I'm like playing 40K, and like, oh, I've never heard about that. Could you explain the universe to us? You imagine trying to do that in like under 30 seconds.
It's like,
how long have you got?
Do you want the Horus Heresy? Do you want the old ones? War in Heaven? Where do you start?
So the ability to Dunify, like Denis Villeneuve has done with the lore of that book, and do that for 40K is massive. And that's going to be critical to its success in my opinion.
Because again, the scale of 40K, as we just briefly mentioned, I mean, even if we go down to like a single point in time, the scale of like these Citadel flying ships in space, where it's like cathedrals. It's like, hold on, it's like where's the budget going to get for that kind of thing? And it's like, like at the Grand Palace, Terra. I mean, that in itself is going to look. I mean, the Mechanicus. There's so many worlds that they may need to visit. Let's hope this obviously be smart in which area they choose to pick, which I'm sure they will. But and again, being more centralized, to say like the grand scale of where do they start. Let's focus in on maybe just one battle. Tanks, humans versus humans, tank versus tanks, and then a Titan comes. And it's like, okay, scale wise, we're getting a lot bigger here. It'll be good to see. I think. Really good to see.
There's a lot of opportunities if they write it correctly and they give it the right budget.
Yeah, I think the budget's gonna be. But they can always, like, the thing is with those type of things, they can always get, like, matte paintings and such to make them look bigger than what they are as well. So matte paintings, although it takes technical time, it's not as bad as making like a big 3D render of something like that. So we'll see. We'll see how it adapts.
But in terms of the lore as well, Dune doesn't patronize the viewer, so it asks you to pay attention. And there's a range of factions competing for power in Dune.
Yeah,
you've got like the Bene Gesserit, you've got the Emperor himself, you've got the Landsraad, which is like the great houses, and then you've obviously got the Harkonnens and the Atreides and all. Yeah. So there's a lot of factions going and competing on there. And like Game of Thrones, it doesn't patronize you; it just expects you to pay attention, and it will show you who they are, but it doesn't. Again, it doesn't do it in a heavy-handed way. Yeah, spoon feeding is a great way of saying it, and I think that's a very fine line to walk as well for an
done
adaptation.
Wrong and it's awful. Done right and it's beautiful. Yeah.
So that's important.
Definitely.
And you just touched on this before about action. So one of the things that Dune gets right is there's some enormous set piece scale battles, which is brilliant.
Oh, amazing.
But there are also 2 or 3 pivotal moments where it's just 1v1 knife fights.
Oh, like the ending scene as well. I mean, obviously, the ending of Dune 1.
Yeah.
And obviously the knives in the
yes.
The 2 people, obviously, Paul Atreides never killed anyone before.
Yes.
And he's like, oh, I really don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And he's like trying to like avoid it and that. And it's really interesting how that plays out, because it could have just been like, blah, 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 done.
Yeah.
Or like there's like fast motion Liam Neeson shaky cam footage and stuff. But I'm glad shaky cam is dispersing from action at the minute. So but yeah, that's really, really good.
Good. And I think now this is I'm going to slightly contradict myself here, but I think you need you need to stay true to some of the lore in terms of the key themes.
Mm-hmm.
So the key theme of the book that I took away from reading the book was it's a warning against following charismatic leaders.
Oh.
He wrote it, and he came out and talked about this in the 60s, but Herbert wrote it as a warning against people like JFK, who was obviously the president at the time. He's like, these people can kind of sweep you all up in there and follow him, but they're actually, even if they've got the best of intentions, they can end up being bad
do
for
anything,
you. Yeah. And whereas in the David Lynch movie in the 80s, the Dune adaptation, they completely got rid of that and just played it as a straight power fantasy. So Paul defeats the evil Harkonnens, frees the Fremen, and then he literally makes it magically rain on Dune at the end. And it's like,
little sprinkle.
Yeah. And just like, come on now, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's not only cheesy, but it also just completely. Again, a bit like you were talking with Halo, it just takes a very fundamental message from the book and just chucks it in the trash.
Yeah, it's like, this, I don't want this in my story. Yeah.
So we need to be true to them. We need somebody, and that's why it's so important that Cavill's involved in this, isn't it? It needs to be someone that knows and understands what those key themes are, and then can fight their corner to make sure we stay true to them.
Yeah.
In terms of the grim, it's the grim darkness, isn't it?
It is the grim darkness. Yeah.
Having said that, there are points which there has been an enormous amount of nerd rage online about Dune, because particularly in Dune Part 2, there's a big deviation from one character from the book. So in the book, Chani, who is sort of falls in love with Paul, and then basically just becomes like his subservient concubine who's just there to support him and doesn't question anything he does.
Oh, right, okay.
Which is, at the time it was written, this book was written in '65. Attitudes are quite different, I suppose. Yeah. And then what Denis Villeneuve does in the movie is completely changes that. So he's like, right, I need to characterize this idea that there is some conflict within the Fremen and within Paul himself, if you like, to say that am I doing the right thing? Is this
like, and someone to not so much pull him down, but to be like, look, is this right?
Yes.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
And they use Chani to do that instead, which actually is probably a more realistic position for somebody who's meant to be an intelligent, strong-minded woman than to just go, you're amazing, I'll just follow whatever you want.
I guess it makes more sense as well for her to do it specifically because Paul's told her all of the dreams and such that he's been seeing, so she knows kind of what he's thinking, and it's almost like he's almost gone too far, and he doesn't know how to pull himself back. So that's why this character's here to be like, hey, don't forget you said this, you didn't want to do this, but you're now doing it.
Exactly.
Stop it. So,
exactly right.
Yeah.
So
done right.
Yeah, and that's you're never going to please everybody. I mean,
of course, it's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, we've just had an absolute fan base meltdown over just introducing female custodies. So changing any element of the law is difficult, and changing changing something like that could cause some issues with some of the fan base. But if it's to reinforce or amplify some of the messaging and the key themes, then I'm happy with that. And I think as fans, we need to be prepared for change as part of this. Don't we?
Expect deviations. It's going to happen, and it's sometimes it's needed, sometimes it's not, and that's where we might see the backlash of like, well, why did you change it? That didn't need to be done. Yeah. But as long as there's like a justification of why it needed to be changed, it makes sense. And speaking about the custodians, obviously the female custodians, we will be making a video on that in the future.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for that. We're going to do a little bit more research on that one, because we know it's a sensitive topic.
Yes.
So it's good to get more research.
Yeah, we're not interested in doing a clickbait reaction either way to this. We want to try and do something that's researched and looks at it properly. So next week or two. Probably.
Yeah, keep an eye on it.
Once we've had a bit more time to look into it.
Like and subscribe if you are watching.
Yes,
to watch out for that. But yeah, like I say, I think it's when done right, in the show, it'll be good. I mean, there's lots of characters in 40k, very strong characters in 40k who will be able to contest each other, because you got the commissioners, got the commissars, who are very good at telling people what to do. So again, having these characters who are like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and the commissar coming and be like, no, you're not doing that, and they're like, okay, no worries, kind of thing. So maybe a nice stark difference.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as much as Dune's my favourite book, and I love both the movies, and I know you love the movies.
Yeah, loved it.
I mean, there are a couple of things that I think we need to look at, like they cut too deep. So particularly, I think you see this particularly in part 1, and also maybe the last third of part 2, is that the rumor is, right, that Denis Villeneuve filmed hours and hours of extra footage, like hours. There's something like 10 hours of footage, all in.
10 hours?
Yeah. And
extra?
Yeah. Well, no, all together. So I think the two movies are like five, somewhere between 5 and 6. And
yes.
There's almost the same again in footage that didn't make it.
I just wish they just released that as well, right? I'd want to see that. I mean, like, I miss the DVD. Sorry, little small tangent. I miss the when you get like a DVDs. And then there'll be like extras in the back of the DVD, like, oh, look, these extras. You watch the extras, and it'll just be like these random assortment of clips, like behind the scenes and such. I just wish they released all that.
I mean, Fade Routher, he's played by Austin Butler in the second movie, and he just steals every scene he's in. He's absolutely amazing. And there's a whole arc with him and a character called Thufir Hawat, who is the Duke's Mentat. He's the Atreides Duke's Mentat in the first one, and he during the when the Harkonnens invade and take back Arrakis, and he just gets kind of written out of the story, sort of assume he dies off screen or something.
Sure.
In the book, he gets captured by the Harkonnens and turned and becomes like
right.
He starts working. He works very closely with Fade, but to try and overthrow the Baron. And there's a whole story out there that just disappears. But we know he filmed it because, or we think he filmed it because there was some stills released from the movie. And there's a scene at the end where the Emperor and the Harkonnens are like facing off in the palace against Paul and the Fremen, and Thufir is stood there with Fade, and like, he's there, is he? So yeah,
obviously something's happening in the background.
I mean, the gossip is that the studio like basically wanted both the movies to come in at certain, like the first one needed to be under 2.5 hours, the second one to be under 3 hours, something like that. So he's had his hands tied to a certain degree, but it doesn't, from our experience, it doesn't help. So I mean, for a movie to be a commercial success, if they made both movies 5 hours long, no one's going. It'd just be me and you.
I was going to say that. Do you reckon people? I mean, personally, I would go.
Yeah, I would absolutely love that.
I would still go to them. I get there's like the standard audience might be like, oh, that's a bit too long for me, or that kind of thing. So, like, why do they have to put a cap on it? I actually just don't know. There probably is genuine reasons out there.
And the TV series gives you more leeway in that if you say, right, this is the story and it's worth 10 hours, then you give it 10 1-hour episodes.
Yeah.
In the movie world, it's the cutting has to be more brutal just because people won't go.
Yeah, that's true.
And I kind of understand that, but what that also means as a result of that is there's a lot of lore lost. So we talked before about how dense and rich that book is in terms of some of the lore, but there's a lot of the lore about the Mentats was lost because a lot of those scenes were cut. The Harkonnens, this is also partly true in the book, but they kind of don't pass the grey area test that I was talking about earlier. They're almost like two-dimensional villains.
Right.
I mean, it's saved by the characters that play the Baron and Fade Routher very much, I think. But they are, if you think about how they are portrayed in the scenes that you see them in, they're just portrayed as being very bad.
They're just there. I mean, I think in every scene they almost like take someone out, kind of thing. So
they are extremely brutal. They're brutal. But they kill them. But that's what they're characterized by, is that real like sense of brutality and callousness. But there should be a bit more to the characters, I think. And also the guild. The Spacing Guild is very important in the book, and its relationship with the spice and why it needs the spice, and therefore how much power that gives Paul when he has control of the spice, and all of that kind of was lost a little bit as well. Yeah. So there's, in a TV show, hopefully that gives you a bit more room to bring all of those elements in, so that we don't lose some of those lovely corners of the lore from 40k.
Yeah, definitely, because there's lots there, lots to show.
Yeah,
it's going to suck when they maybe pull some stuff out that we love. but it's just going to happen.
Any adaptation, you said this right at the beginning, any adaptation is a trade-off between what exists and trying to bring a new audience to it. So we're just going to have to live with that. But on that note, what are you hoping to see?
What I'm hoping to see from the TV show from Warhammer is just authenticity, I think. Like, I want it to be true to the lore, true to the fans, because, look, at the end of the day, they have to... I was going to say, I almost take that back. There's enough fans of Warhammer out there to sustain a TV show by itself, so that they don't need to pander to the general audience in a way that can go into that lore deep element. Now, I get that might be it's almost like against what some people might think, but I mean, the 40K market, the Games Workshop is a bigger industry than the fishing market in the UK.
Yeah.
So put that in perspective. All right, more people buy Warhammer than they do fish. Okay. Yeah. So that alone, there's enough of us to enjoy the TV show. So I just hope that they stick to how Fallout done it. They make sure that there's good lore in there. There's good nods to the fans. It's well written. It's well produced, and it just stays true to what it is. I think
that's the main thing, and I think that's what Dune and Fallout do. Is they remained broadly authentic to the and that trade-off that we were talking about before is, you know, there are elements in Dune where they've changed the law or certain elements of the law that just didn't make the cut.
Yep.
The same with Fallout, where they've made some change. You know, there's some issues that the real law lovers might have with that.
Yeah.
But the trade-off is that you still get a great show that is by and large law adherent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not heavy.
Yeah.
Adherent, I think is the best way.
And that is not true of Halo, where they put all the law in the dumpster and then set fire to it.
Yeah, they just didn't care.
No.
And I think that's another thing. They just, I guess maybe one of my worries maybe as well is that they just don't. I hope that they care about what they're making.
Yeah.
They're not just making it for money. They're not just making it because they have to. They make it because, I'll tell you what, I mean, this is another thing. Henry said, he started, I don't know if people remember, but he was during The Witcher, he was saying, it's like, hey, you seen that thing there? That looks like such and such from Warhammer. And everyone's like, what you were talking about? And everyone in the comments is like, Warhammer. Yeah. And then that's when GW picked up. Henry was like, well, do you fancy working on this? This will be a good thing for you to get involved in. And he was like, I'm well on board doing this. So I think we've got a good leadership going forward.
He clearly loves is someone that gets deep into lore. He showed that with The Witcher.
Yes.
And then 40K is his first passion.
Yeah.
So, it's in the right hands there, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the balancing act that they have to strike. Is they are making this.
Yeah.
Amazon wants to make it to be a commercial success, which in their views is like tens of millions or hundreds of millions of people viewing it. Really. So it is going to have to grow beyond 40K.
Yeah.
The existing 40K audience.
Yeah.
But the trade-off has to be we don't want to sacrifice what makes 40K great in order to try and bring those people in. Because that doesn't work, and Halo's proved it.
100%. Unfortunately, sadness to my heart. Yeah. You're absolutely spot on. Do you reckon Henry will do us right then?
I think so, yeah.
I'm behind Henry, I mean, he's a handsome man, that jawline.
He is, yes. I mean, it's very, very clear that he's very passionate about this. Yeah. And I think it would be difficult for it'd be stupid of any company like Amazon to bring him on board knowing his track record from The Witcher.
Right? Yeah, that it wouldn't make sense if he came on, and then I think I briefly mentioned you off camera where it's like, he's been let go for creative differences. It's like, hold on. You knew what he wanted to do. You knew he was passionate about this. Yeah. This is why he was fired from Witcher. Yeah. Because he was passionate about the show. Unfortunately, the people around him weren't passionate, and they got him kicked out. Yes. So, I think you're absolutely spot on that one. I think
I'm confident that he's the right person to be in charge of the project, or to be influential on that project. And I'm also confident that Amazon will allow him to have that creative input. Yeah, because why wouldn't you?
Well, they brought him on for
that's what they brought him
exactly
for.
Right. Unless they brought him on for something else.
Bearing that in mind, I mean, Amazon has certain criteria that it will that it believes will help to make a show successful, and diversity and inclusion are among those things.
Yeah.
So it's a question of how that they do things like that. 40K. Again, we'll talk more about this in the Custodies video.
Yeah.
But 40K is not the most diverse. There's not a huge amount of female representation.
No.
And it might well be that they need to make changes to try and make that work better to get them. But it's just it's that then comes down to the quality of the writing again, doesn't it?
Exactly right. Yeah. I think again we'll talk more about it in next week. 'Cause I know that people are absolutely raging still online about literally what 2 sentences a bit of law, and they're just going crazy for it. It was a sentence or two in a couple of codexes in the original Road Trader, and then they've changed it with another sentence. I'm like, well, that's it. It's like fandom.
That's all it takes to light the fire these days.
Yeah, exactly. But we'll talk more in maybe the downfall of Custodians.
And I think it's a good point that you raise here that in terms of as fans, how should we be having the discourse about this online and as things emerge?
Yeah, well, exactly. How do we steer this show into the right way? Because basically, obviously, we're going to get some rumors coming out. There's rumors at the minute with that Henry's no longer working on the TV show because of the Custodian thing that came out.
Yeah.
Absolute rumours. It's nothing's confirmed. So
there was a rumor. Again, we'll talk about this next week. But there's a rumor flying around on there, like on Reddit about this, and it just sounded all really plausible. And then you get right to the last sentence, and it literally says, "You can trust me. My dad works at Nintendo."
Oh no!
Okay,
straight
that sounds plausible.
This entire paragraph, now it's out the window.
There is a lot of there's a lot of misinformation out there, and the reason I think Henry still is 100% involved is because if you're a PLC, like a listed company on the stock exchange, if something happens that they call it material news, which is something that could materially impact your share price or your company's performance, you have to announce that to the stock market immediately. Right. So if you get to the end of you're coming to the end of your quarter of sales and your sales are 10% better than you're expecting, you're meant to tell the market, actually, we've had a really good quarter, so be prepared for that, and vice versa. If they're 20% down, you have to tell them as well. So that because if you withhold that information, that artificially impacts the share price. And withholding the information that Cavill had left the show, they wouldn't be allowed to do that.
That's exactly right.
That's my best guess. But it's
a valid point. No, definitely.
So fingers crossed he's still, and also I desperately want him to still be involved.
I think we're all touching on it.
But
I think that's another thing. Let's take all these news with a pinch of salt. Don't jump on the negative train. Don't be like, oh, this is bad. And let's say hypothetically, he were to leave or be let go from the show, that doesn't mean the show is going to be bad. So don't jump. Let's say he does get let off or he leaves naturally, whatever, let's not jump on the negative train. We have no one seeing the show. No one can make proper assumptions on how it's going to be. So let's just keep an open mind, go into it, because most likely he's not going to be left. And it is going to be an amazing show. So let's just keep positive. Keep the happy train going.
Definitely. And I think, Dune and Fallout have both brought new fans to both franchises. So Dune's gone back into the bestseller lists. It's I think it was number 1 for a while, but it's all over bookshops again. Fallout, as we talked about, millions more people playing the game. So we have to be prepared for the same with 40K. So both shows can demonstrate that you can deliver commercial success without completely selling out and losing fans who brought the franchise to that point. It gave it the critical mass to then become a TV show, which becomes something bigger.
Exactly.
So it is going to happen, and we have to, as much as the joke about smashing news all over the place, if that does happen, the fan base needs to be in a position where, if these people start joining our social media groups and channels, that they're not completely put off by the toxicity of these
female custodians. Watch this guy. It's like, shut up. Welcome them to the community. Let's get the community even bigger than what it already is. At the end of the day, it benefits everybody. There's no negative to having more people in the fandom. People might say, they don't dislike the law, they want the law changed. Well, that's their opinion. Everyone has their opinion. Everyone's allowed it. So
all fans are fans. I don't really buy into this true fan fallacy. If somebody that falls in love with the 40K TV show and joins a hobby, that happened to us, all of us at one point.
Yeah.
So, let's welcome them in.
Exactly. But I think that's it, really, isn't it? Is there anything else that you want to kind of go over?
No, I think it's very good. I hope you guys have enjoyed that discussion. We tried to, I know it's a little bit longer than some of the usual ones, but there was a lot to cover there, and I think it was important to look at that. And please, as usual, let us know in the comments as well. Be nice to each other, as you always are. We've got a really good bunch of people that comment on on Instagram and YouTube particularly. But yeah, let us know exactly what your thoughts are. Did you enjoy Dune? What did you like and dislike about it? What do you want to see from the 40K TV show? All of that stuff. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and we'll be back soon.